Hey friends, markets with monopolistic competition refer to markets with firms that sell products which belong to the same category but with different features. Most industries and companies that you know follow this model, with examples including automotive companies or consumer packaged goods. And this mind map that you see on this screen shows the characteristics of the firms with a monopolistic competition model. And there are three key characteristics to take note of. The first one, in terms of number of firms, there are a large number of firms, just like the perfect competition model, which we have covered in a previous video. In terms of barriers to entry, firms under the monopolistic competition model have low barriers to entry, and in terms of product differentiation, there are some product differentiation. So each firm tries to make its product different from those of the other competitors in the same industries. And they can make their products different through multiple ways, such as physical differences, quality differences, locations, services, and through manipulating its product image through advertising and branding. Product differentiation helps firms with a monopolistic competition model compete. And we call this mode of competition non-price competition, which is when firms don't compete against each other based on price. And besides product differentiation, a firm's branding can also help to drive non-price competition. Firms under the monopolistic competition model will compete with each other based on both price and non-price methods. So because monopolistically competitive firms compete with one another, you can imagine the demand curve as being slightly less elastic than a perfectly competitive firm's demand curve, but a bit more elastic than a monopoly's demand curve. So in terms of the demand curve, the slope of a monopolistic competitive firm's demand curve is quite slanted. And given these characteristics, how does a firm in monopolistic competition make profits? Well, monopolistically competitive firms have two types of profits, namely short-run and long-run profits, just like firms in perfect competition. So the graph that you see over here, this set of three diagrams, represent the firm's short-run profits. And as you can see, in the short run, you could potentially enjoy abnormal profits or experience losses. But in the long run, you can only enjoy profits. Why? Recall that in the short run, the firm has at least one fixed input. And this means we assume the number of firms in the market remains the same. So imagine you sell shoes, and now you sell Q1 amount of shoes as we see over here. Here, the average cost per unit of shoes sold is lower than the average revenue per unit of shoes. And this means you make an abnormal profit per unit of shoes, reflected in the diagram as the gap between these 2 points over here. The other two graphs show different scenarios, either when the average cost covers the price of shoes at Q2 to net you either normal profits, or when the average cost is higher than the price of shoes at Q3, so the firm experiences a loss. Now, in the long run, recall that all inputs become variable, so inputs can change. And now the number of shoe sellers in a market can also change because firms can either enter or leave the market. At the profit maximizing level of output where MR equals to MC, the price is equals to AC, right, which is over here. And therefore the profit is zero. So the firm is earning normal profit. But one thing to take note is that there is a difference between the curve shifts for the perfectly competitive model and monopolistically competitive firms. In the perfect competition model, it is the industry supply curve that shifts left and right as competitors leave and enter the market. But for monopolistic competition, it is the individual firm's demand curve which shifts left and right. Why? Because new firms entering the market attracts customers away from the existing firms in the market. And current firms leaving means existing customers demand more from the remaining firms in the market. And therefore, under the monopolistic competition model, it is the firm's demand curve which shifts. But if you think about it, the reason for these shifts are identical across both market structures. When all of the inputs can change, this means that when new shoe sellers see profitable sales, they enter the shoe market to get some profits. And when existing shoe sellers make losses, they also have to close down and leave the market. So in the long run, firms' profits and losses are eliminated, and revenues are just enough to cover the costs So all the firms achieve normal profit. And we can see that the price will be equal to the minimum average cost, just like we see in this diagram on this slide. So this explanation shows the similarity between monopolistic competition and perfect competition firms. But note that unlike perfect competition firms, firms in monopolistic competition do not achieve allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency is achieved when MB equals to MC, but as you see in this particular diagram, the marginal benefit and demand curve, which is this curve over here, is higher than the marginal cost curve, the MC curve, which is over here, at the profit maximizing level of output QE. So the market under-allocates resources to production, and this means that too little goods and services are produced relative to social optimums. And this concludes that allocative efficiency is not achieved under monopolistic competition.